Hello, this is Chris with Emmett Royal Honey. Welcome to their episodes. This one was to talk about what to feed your honeybees, especially when you do an assessment on an inspection and you wonder, okay, do they have enough honey or nectar or pollen? You do want to, at times, feed them in order to supplement that. Now, keep in mind, it's best to allow the honeybees to do their own gathering. So in periods of where there's nectar flows and abundance, you really don't want to feed them. So really, when it comes to feeding, the default should be not to feed them. You only want to feed them if, again, there's a survivable, they're going to obviously starve or they're going to run out of food. Then that's when you want to supplement feeding. But otherwise, you really do want to just make sure they gather their own food for health purposes. Let's say so you've assessed the hive and you want to make sure that you do want to feed them, right? So you've assessed there's a lot of bees and a limited amount of food depending on some situations, and you're ready to feed them. How to go about doing that? Typically, if you're in springtime or early summer, typically in periods of growth, you do want to feed them to 1-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates. In this case, again, like I talked about, white table sugar or corn syrup. In this case, we're going to focus on if it's granulated white sugar. So here we have a container. It's a 1-gallon container. A 1-to-1 ratio typically is best using it by weight. Just for kind of ease of purposes, a gallon of water weighs approximately 8 pounds. And so you want to put 8 pounds of granulated sugar to every gallon of water. Again, these are approximate figures. What you can do in this case is also by volume. So instead of a 1-gallon container of water, you fill it half with granulated sugar and the rest with warm water, and then stir until dissolved properly. And this would be your 1-to-1 ratio that you can use during spring or early summer. During the fall periods, if you, again, assess the weight of the hive, it's not to the point where you feel or doing research that you need to do, you want to do a 2-to-1 ratio. And this would be, again, by volume, a 1-gallon container full of granulated sugar, and fill the rest with warm water and to dissolve until the water reaches the 1-gallon mark. Or, of course, by weight, which is 16 pounds of granulated sugar to every 8 pounds of water, in this case being a gallon approximately. So that's how you mix your carbohydrates. Let's say pollen patties. You do not want to feed pollen patties in the fall, and that's because they're not building up brood sources. You're going to might confuse the bees. So pollen patties are the best with early spring buildup. Being able to feed them. If they don't have pollen in there and you assess that during your spring period, you do want to feed them most likely a substitute in this case. Pollen is a pollen substitute. So if you buy that from stores, you're not buying actual pollen. You're buying a mixture of kind of things to make it appeal, good for the honeybees. So if you do have raw, pure pollen, that is the best to supplement their feeding. So these are some options on feeding your honeybees to make sure that they are healthy and thriving. Again, keep in mind, they're not pets, especially from a hobbyist perspective. You don't have to always feed them. Allow the bees actually gather their own natural sources from the environment, and that will be the healthiest for them. If in times of dire need, where again, there isn't a lot of resources there, then feeding them as a substitute could be a way for sure to limit stress and help the colony survive. So hopefully this was helpful on how to mix different carbohydrates and protein for your bees. And if you have any questions, let us know. Happy beekeeping.